Dambisa Moyo, How the West Was Lost, 50 Years of Economic Folly and the Stark Choices Ahead. Welcome to the summary of How the West Was Lost, 50 Years of Economic Folly and the Stark Choices Ahead, by Dambisa Moyo. This eye-opening book explores how the West, particularly the United States and Europe, has made critical mistakes in managing their economies, leading to a long-term decline in their global influence. As the West falters, emerging nations, dubbed as the Rising Rest, have been making remarkable progress, with China leading the charge. This summary delves into the key factors behind Western economic decline, elucidates the rapid rise of nations like China and India, and outlines the possible scenarios for the West in the near future. Get ready to gain a deeper understanding of the global economic landscape and the drastic measures the West must consider to secure its future.
Non-Western nations rise. The decline of Western powers is leading to the ascent of non-Western nations, including the rising rest, countries like Brazil, India, and China. They are rapidly expanding their economies, while the West has lost much of its influence. The book argues that unless the West adopts radical solutions quickly, it will be too late. In 2008, the Abu Dhabi government spent $800 million on the Chrysler Building, one of the U.S.'s iconic structures, and investors from the Middle East spent another $1 billion on other U.S. commercial real estate properties. This is just one example of non-Western investments in the West that are apt to increase in the aftermath of the 2008 crisis. The book puts forward the argument that the global financier decides who wields military and political might. The West has lost its dominance in the world, and non-Western nations are taking over. The rising rest countries, with China as the leader, are quickly expanding their economies and will soon replace the West. These nations are currently willing to trade with the West, but they will stop doing so as soon as they no longer need to rely on them. The book urges the West to adopt radical solutions before it's too late. The inevitable Western economic deterioration. The 2008 financial crisis, while unexpected, was the inevitable outcome of wrong-headed policy decisions made by Western leaders and governments. If the US and other Western countries had handled their economies in a different way, they might have been able to prevent or minimize the disastrous effects of the crisis. Instead, the crisis marked the beginning of a significant decline in Western economic dominance and the rise of other powers. Unless the West drastically changes its economic policies, this decline will continue. Over the past 500 years, Western economic dominance has been characterized by ruthlessness and self-interest. The 2008 financial crisis demonstrated that the West's complex financial system was not as strong as they thought. In September 2008, multiple financial disasters occurred, including the collapse of Lehman Brothers and the near collapse of AIG. The U.S. government quickly had to nationalize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and inject $85 billion into AIG. Trillions of dollars suddenly vanished from stock market valuations. Millions of people watched in horror as their life savings and pensions took on a bad bet. The 2008 financial crisis is a warning sign that the West needs to change its economic policies to avoid further deterioration. China's economic dominance. China has undergone a significant economic transition in the past 50 years, growing to become the world's second-largest and most dynamic economy. An analysis of historical GDPs shows that China had the largest economy in the world in 1820, with a GDP accounting for 32.4% of total global GDP. However, during the past 500 years, the West has primarily dominated the world economically. The emergence of China and other rising rest nations will claim an increasing share of the world's resources, potentially resulting in a decline of living standards for people in the West while aiding in the growth of these economies. The result of flawed economic policies. The West has been squandering its resources for the last few decades due to the incompetence of its leaders' economic policies. The miscomprehension of fundamental concepts of equity and debt has caused severe damage to Western economies. The U.S. housing market is a perfect example of this failure. Its ill-conceived policy promoting homeownership for all resulted in mass mortgage debt and eventually led to a market collapse. The Western powers' short-sightedness has left their citizens grappling with an uncertain financial future, especially in regards to pension funds. Instead of encouraging unaffordable mortgage debt, the government should focus on promoting fiscally responsible behavior. As Western economies grow weaker, their emerging nation counterparts' cash-rich companies are gaining more power. Challenges facing Western labor markets. The Western world's labor markets are grappling with three main issues: cost, rewards, and immigration. Labor costs are often underestimated due to the lack of factoring in expenses geared towards worker pension plans. Furthermore, the service sector has become a major area of focus, leading to significant financial incentives going towards specialists who add little value to society or economic productivity. Immigration policies are tightening in the U.S., affecting the country's labor force negatively and limiting growth opportunities. Western countries are also grappling with demographic challenges, with an aging population in contrast to emerging economies, where the population is on the younger side. Additionally, the West prioritizes less on engineering and scientific education and more towards lawyers, unlike China. This approach will be detrimental to the U.S.'s ability to sustain a skilled workforce that can handle high-tech job demands. The West needs to come up with solutions that cater to its labor markets needs to ensure sustainable growth. The rise of TFP in the East. The West's technological supremacy is waning as the rising West, including China and Peru, record significant growth in total factor productivity, TFP. TFP, which influences almost 60% of economic growth, measures multiple factors, including sophisticated technology, human rights, geography, and legal standards. While China is quickly catching up with the West, it is also mimicking it, to the point of detriment in several areas. The East is now the leading center for stem cell research and taking great strides in controlling the weather. Thai scientists have developed a vital new HIV vaccine, marking the rise of the rising West countries. The rise of non-Western nations. Traditional global governance groups have been led by the West, excluding non-Western countries from its organizations. However, the tide is turning, and non-Western nations are now conferring with one another, while ignoring the West. There are 4 scenarios for the future, including the status quo, China faltering, America fighting back, or adopting drastic measures such as protectionism or defaulting on its obligations. The author argues that unless the West and specifically, the U.S. adapts its policies on capital, labor, and technology, its decline is almost certain to continue.
In conclusion, How the West Was Lost, by Dambisa Moyo showcases the long-term consequences of flawed economic policies and practices in the Western world. With the rise of emerging nations like Brazil, India, and China, the global balance of power is shifting rapidly. The book highlights how the West's bad decisions in managing capital, labor, and technology have contributed to its decline. To reverse this trend, Western powers need to revolutionize their approach to economic policy and prioritize key areas such as research, technology, and education. With gripping examples and insightful analysis, Moyo's book serves as a crucial warning and call for action, urging the West to adapt and reform before it is too late.